and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Amen. God bless you. Amen.
Thank you. We are really running out of time. I won't say that much. I will introduce Minister of Women, Youth and Persons with Disabilities, Minister Maite Nkoana-Mashabane, to come up front.
Malibongwe. Igama lamakhosikazi. Program Director and Advocate Maluleke, DG of the department. The brand new mayor, Dr. Palazzi of Johannesburg. Representatives of our cabinet, all cabinet colleagues present here, representatives of Mayor Bekele Thomas, the UN resident coordinator, Mayor Tamara Matebula, who is the Gender Equality Commission Chair, representative of our development partners, GIS and the European Union, Advocate Maluleke, I've already greeted you, the taxi associations who are our partners, community-based organizations from all walks of life, but this would not have been a blessed day if you were not amongst us. Residents of Soweto from all corners, fellow South Africans. Today, again, we join the international community. This is a day commemorated by the international community. This is the 30th year of the commemoration of 16 days of activism for non-violence against women and children. We chose to be here at home in Soweto, but also painfully so, to remind ourselves that Soweto, Madam Mayor, this is the place that has become one of the top 30 hotspots of gender-based violence and femicide. So, gender-based violence and femicide remains the second pandemic of our country, and most of our communities have witnessed devastating impacts of this pandemic. Ladies and gentlemen, almost 2 years ago, it remains in our minds what we witnessed watching, either physically or on television, the body of our beloved daughter, Tsogofatso Pule, who was 8 months pregnant, was found hanging on a tree, remember, in the midst of COVID-19 in Roodepoort, West Rand. During this year of the Women's Month, in August, I traveled to Matatiele, in Eastern Cape, to pay condolences and also to greet the family of Nasicelo Mtibeni, a student of Hote who was brutally killed by the man who was supposed to love her. Just a few days ago, I attended the court proceedings in my hometown in Polokwane, Seshego, where 10 bodies of poor women from 25 to 48 were killed, and their bodies were strewn all over the place in and around Polokwane. As we're sitting in that court, we were informed that actually they have just found 7. 3 is still out there, and they've made a call if they could be found so that they could be buried with dignity. Our country, our women, our children are not safe, don't feel safe, but government is focused on the fact that as much as this is the 30th anniversary of 16 days of activism, the 25th of November, that is commemorated worldwide, that will end for the world maybe on the 10th of December. Ours is 365 days, because women of this country have long said enough is enough. This year we say, in the name of our great-grandmother, the one who made us proud, Mayor Charlotte Manye Maite, 16 days of activism should move from awareness to accountability. In 2018, there was a national strategic plan that was drafted, agreed to, presided over by the President, the head of state, Matamela Cyril Ramaphosa, Excellency, with government representatives and civil society organizations. This year, we had an opportunity to have him say the first rollout of the national strategic plan. I want us to plead that as we talk of the 6 pillars of the national strategic plan, we say accountability, coordination, and leadership, prevention and rebuilding social cohesion, protection, safety, and justice, response, care, support, and healing, economic power, research, and information system. All the 6 pillars are what we report to and what is happening by each and every department to the President weekly. So information is power, and yes, as our spiritual leader has already said, women don't kill themselves. They also, besides being victims all the time, they are, if we're given economic means, they would be the mayors, like our mayor Palace behind me, do the best they can do, serve the nation, feed the children, feed their husbands, brothers, and sisters. Under the leadership of our President, we need to take this accountability to take forward responsibility for our own action. The first action is, if you are not in the act, you actually say, I will not look away. If you look away, it means you are also acting wrongly. We all have to do things together. And the first thing is, next year when we meet, Soweto will no longer be on the top 10 of the ugly list with the mayor. We need accountability in all our spheres. In the spirit of moving from awareness to accountability, let us all make sure that GBVF is history. At the heart of this intervention, there's a need for collaborative approach. There is a need to make sure that we work together to make this history, as I said. In government, we have an interministerial committee above cabinet, but every department do have to bring report, and through our Department of Women, Youth and Persons with Disability, make sure that it reaches the President to see that we are indeed making progress. So, 2019, there is a declaration of government, article number 5, that government and civil society calls for the review of existing laws and policies to identify gaps and ensure that they are victim-centered and responsive. Accordingly, we have indeed, yes, passed through Parliament 3 bills that says or will assist to make sure that justice is done and women get out of these chains. In fact, we are fighting that women get more economic empowerment so as to get access to that which makes them do the things they do best, as I said in our NSP. We have just hosted the CEDAW to account to what is it that we would be doing to make sure that we take care of our women. So we have made commitments that gender-based violence in this country should become history. CEDAW, again, is a UN body which is fighting against all forms of discrimination and elimination thereof, which we have signed on. Excellencies, we make, when I say we, I'm counting Maite, women, Basad, in this country, we make 52% of the population. Yet, women-owned business still account for 1% of public procurement. South Africa is also co-leader of the Action Coalition for Economic Justice and Rise at the Gender Generation Forum, which our president is a member of. It's led by heads of states. Therefore, as a government, we have committed to taking tangible action to ensure that 2026 economic justice and rights are guaranteed for women and girls. Women's effective economic participation is integral in ending the scourge of gender-based violence. Therefore, this year, we launched Women's Economic Assembly by the President himself, which is a platform to mobilize private sector to partner with government to enable women-owned enterprises to participate in procurement opportunities within industry and supply chains. So, Madam Mayor Palace, so if there's some project that has to be undertaken, please remind the service providers that at least 40% of that particular company's, whatever they'll benefit from is benefited by women. It's not going to make you popular, but that's what we are monitoring. That's what we are making sure that it becomes popular, even if it's not. Popular to women, because the President had said so. He has instructed so. So he leads from the front because he pronounced this. I think it's a very nice partnership between men and women to do. We have underscored the realization of the violence-free South Africa, that it requires stakeholders, including society, including business, religious, traditional sector, development agencies, and all of us. And we are so happy, Father Poton, that you had made us remember our Creator. That before we do anything, we make sure that we will succeed. But the first success should be you and me, because it's not a good thing that which women are going through in this country. This 16 days of activism has reminded us of our grandmother, Mayor Charlotte Maite. So let us go live the way she said we should, in order to achieve the vision of a South Africa free from violence. We must remember this work is not for yourselves. Kill the spirit of self and do not live above your people, but live with them. If you can rise, please bring someone with you. Let us all be accountable. Let us all make South Africa beautiful inside and outside. Women are saying enough is enough. Basadi ba re go lekane, re utlwile. Basadi ba re se se khathele, se se zwile. Sithi asakufuna uzwa kuthiwa ushayilwe because uyathandwa. Ubulayiwe because uyaratwa. Thank you.
Thank you, Minister. Re utlwile akere? Re utlwile gore Minister are we are moving away from just awareness to accountability akere. Accountability is gore o mong le o mong wa rona o responsible go etsa sure gore ntwa or go shapa ga basadi o go reipa ga bana ga fela akere. All of us are responsible. The criminal justice system ikena seti mutu alimeti akir. So runa le matla a gore re stope before yetsagala. O boletse dilo tse dingata, however anka se di tshoka fela dilo tse a di boletseng ka wane nako ya re shapa. Ra leboga Minister, and all of us have heard what you've said. And re leboga le thapelo e etsagetseng. On the program, ba ba tshwereng di-program, ba bona gore ne tshwantse re bane le Minister Lindiwe Zulu, however, o deployed somewhere else, le MEC Faith Mazibuko, uko Themba, and then the portfolio committee, ba dutse no ko parliament. So, kita kopa, Miss Tamara, Matebula Kutule Baruteng, mo, okay, atle mo pil, atlo dula mo, kaban liya na utlo volet. Okay, ne kutule Baruteng. Okay, now Kitlabita, our new from the box, Mayor wa Johannesburg, wa City of Johannesburg, Dr. Mpho Phalatse. Ra leboga.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Honorable Minister Maite Nkoana-Mashabane. What an honor for you to be launching the 16 days of activism against violence towards women and children here in Johannesburg, when the City Council has just elected its first ever democratically elected executive mayor, who is a woman, Womandla. This signals great things for women in South Africa, and not only in Johannesburg. It says it is a new day for women. Johannesburg is not just any city, it's the economic hub of South Africa, and in many ways of the continent as well. And for a woman to be trusted to be at the helm of the city really says that women are capable, and that women indeed should be given more opportunity in the city and in South Africa. Archbishop Botswana, thank you so much for those prayers. Thank you for your covering over us. We do need men to be more actively involved in the protection and the empowerment of women. And I thank you that you're taking the lead and that you're providing spiritual covering as well. We really need to hold hands with the faith-based sector to help us with moral regeneration and to help us raise awareness of just how wrong things have gone and how much we need to urgently change what is happening in our cities. Minister, I want to assure you that the City of Johannesburg is committed towards addressing the plight of women and children. I served as an MMC for Health and Social Development between 2016 and 2019, and a lot of progress was made in that time to begin to address the plight of women. I'm not just a politician, I'm also a medical doctor. And before I entered politics in 2016, I was still active as a clinician. And one of the things I did was practice as a sexual assault care practitioner. I saw many cases of sexual assault, including domestic violence against women. I sat with many women, I interviewed many of them to understand their story. And one thing that most of these women had in common was that many of them were dependent on their perpetrator for their livelihood. Many of them depended on the man in their lives for survival, the provision of shelter, the provision of food, even care for their children. And many of these women could therefore not walk away from these abusive situations because they did not know where to from there. And so they stayed and endured this abuse over and over, and unfortunately many of them ended up being killed by the very perpetrators. I challenged many of these women to walk away, but many times they said, where will I go? And I realized there's a lot that government needs to do to empower women so they can have options and not feel a need to stay in these abusive relationships. When I became an MMC, one of the first things we did was we looked at the structure of the City of Johannesburg. We immediately noticed a lopsided approach to gender empowerment, where on the legislative side of council, we had a GOD oversight committee. GOD is Gender, Youth and Persons with Disabilities. However, when we looked on the executive side of council, there was no such representation. And so you had an oversight committee that's doing oversight on a non-existent body. Departments of the city as well as entities did not do their work with a focus on women, youth, and persons with disabilities. What we immediately did is we took this to the mayoral committee and we established a GOD on the executive side, where we envisioned that together with the planning division of the city, we'll begin to ensure that all the plans of the various departments and entities will represent the need to address the plight of those vulnerable populations in terms of opportunities in procurement, in recruitment, and any other kind of development that needs to go into these communities. That will make for easier reporting and easier accountability. It will make the oversight easier so that indeed as a council we are held accountable, Minister, on what we are doing to help women and children feel safe. There's a lot that a local government can do. We've got responsibility towards public safety, even though we do it in partnership with the South African Police Services. One of the things we'll be introducing in this term of office is integrated policing, because we realize there are a lot of gaps in policing. The Joburg Metro Police Division has certain responsibilities, SABC has certain responsibilities, but how well are we working together? What we'll start doing is strengthening those intergovernmental relations to ensure that we close all gaps and strengthen public safety within the city. One of the things that we've done elsewhere where we govern in the country is that we've also connected all law enforcement agencies, the SABC, the Metro Police Division, as well as private law enforcement and community law enforcement through communication networks, such as radio communication networks, but also the use of CCTV cameras linked to the Intelligence Operating Center of the city will also assist in strengthening surveillance and really curbing these crimes that are happening in communities. Of course, there's a lot of awareness raising that we need to do, and I agree it needs to be a 365-day initiative and not just 16 days. As a doctor, I remember when I was an intern in 2006 in Tembisa Hospital, as soon as the 16 days of activism started, we saw a rise in cases of violence against women, which was really ironic because this is a time when we're thinking that men will really begin to question their behavior. But one other thing I'd like to point out is that our initiatives should not only focus on women, but they must focus on men as well. One of the things that we did in the 3 years that I was MMC was we began to set up men's forums in the 7 regions of the city, and men began to have very important conversations with each other over what exactly is going on. A lot of the men were frustrated. We have committed so much of our resources as government towards the empowerment of women, but what we forgot to do was empower the man to handle an empowered woman. Patriarchy is something we need to fight systematically as well, and men need to be assisted to transition into a dispensation where women are independent, women are empowered. They need to understand how to deal with that type of woman. And out of frustration, a lot of these men end up resorting to violence. Even a lot of my patients would say to me, oh, ever since I started working, he started beating me up. Ever since I started earning my own money, he says I have too much to say now. And so those are some of the things we need to begin to deal with systematically. There's a lot of private sector as well as non-governmental sector interest in partnering with us as government to help empower these men. And we really saw a lot of success through our men's forums. And so I'd like to urge all of us represented here today to begin to think about bringing men along as we transition so that we begin to fight, not only by empowering women, but by empowering men as well. I'm truly excited for Johannesburg, particularly since we now have a female mayor. I do believe that it's a new day for the city, that the women of the city can be assured that they now have a mayor who understands firsthand their plight, and I will be addressing their issues, and I will be prioritizing issues of women in the city. I will make sure that every department and entity has an agenda towards the protection and empowerment of our women, but also through the services that we provide, ensuring that women feel safe through visible policing, through street lighting, grass cutting, and all those kinds of measures which are local government competencies that can go a long way in ensuring that women feel safe in the city. It is a new day, and this is a victory for every woman in Johannesburg, and I'll make sure that at the end of this 5 years, the lives of the women of the city are changed. Thank you very much.
Wow, she just called bluff the people who say there are no women to take positions. She's a stick taken from fire. She's hot. I also envy Johannesburg because they do have a leader. We do have a leader, people in Johannesburg. Thank you so much. Thank you very much. Without wasting time, in order to make sure that we finish on time, I will call on, is Ms. Tamara Matebula here from the CGE? Okay, I was informed that she was doing the interview earlier on. That means she's not here. I would like to call on Dr. Shahida Omar. She's a member of the National Strategic Plan Pillar Collaborative Initiative. She will tell us what it means.
Dumelang, Sanibonani, Abshin, universal greetings to all, Program Director, Honorable Minister Maite Nkoana-Mashabane, our Honorable Archbishop, and of course, yay to the new elected Mayor of Johannesburg, and all protocols observed. Speaking about the NSP, so I was on the interim steering committee, and when I sat in that first meeting at the interim steering committee, I thought, I'm wasting my time here. This is a bunch of women just talking and not sure where we're going to. I have to say, years down that journey, it's been an incredible journey. It's been robust engagement, but not just a talk shop. It's been thoughts, deliberations, consultations, hearing from people on the ground at that national summit, which was hosted by the president, the pain, the trauma, the humiliation that women have suffered, all that coming and being realized into something tangible, where the National Strategic Plan, as our Honorable Minister alluded to, the 6 pillars, and those 6 pillars were also aligned to the Emergency Response Action Plan. So as we speak, I still continue to sit on Pillar 2, which is prevention, and Pillar 4, which is care, response, and support. I just want to add quickly, I'm not going to take much of your time, but historically, GBVF was regarded as a family matter. It was internal issues. And now this has changed. We have found that with it being declared a national pandemic, a lot of processes have been placed or put into place. And we realize that it affects not only the mother, but it affects the family, impacting on the children with long-term implications for their safety and well-being. For many children, for many women, home has not been the place of safety, the place of hope. It's been a place of danger and fear. They remain trapped in these places without access to any kind of support or interventions. And this has been typical of the responses elicited during the lockdown period. We found that where children were witnessing gender-based violence and femicide, they were not merely innocent bystanders, but became directly affected by it. And the emotions they feel and the memories that are imprinted on them certainly affects their brain, the neurological changes, and also influencing the choices that they make in terms of life partners and other spheres of their lives. And I think this is something that we need to be also aware of, that many children and women are in a flux of hypervigilance, that startled response, waiting for the next violent, explosive episode. And something that we've seen coming and working in the children's sector, where children are displaying a lot of depression, anxiety, concentration spans being limited, irritability, aggression. Aggression begets aggression. And what we've also seen is impulse control issues, language delays or development of language delays. And this is also supported by not only clinical evidence, but a lot of the global research supports these symptoms. I also want to add, a boy who witnesses his mother being abused is 10 times more likely to abuse or become abusive in his adulthood. So I think we need to also look at this trajectory, the impact where victims go on to become victimizers, or they gravitate into relationships where they're going to remain victims or become perpetrators. For years, domestic violence and child abuse has been portrayed as distinct and separate issues. However, I think we need to realize that there is a co-occurrence of, where there is domestic violence, there's a co-occurrence of child abuse. I want to, before I conclude, I want to share with you, I think our previous speakers spoke to accountability, firstly from awareness to accountability. And I think this is critical if we look at the pillars. So we had a 5-year-old girl who was referred to our organization. She was unable to speak. Now, when I say she was unable to speak, she stopped speaking after she witnessed her biological mother being shot to death by the father, her biological father. And she came in for therapy. It was 3 months, and this was August last year. 3 months down the road, this child was drawing pictures using red crayon, symbolic and metaphoric, of blood. And then the one day she took a stick and she pointed and she drew a picture pointing to this woman, and it was actually her mother, and she gesticulated how her mother was shot. But the positive side of this is that this child was able to resume speaking again, attended ECD school once again, was reconciled with alternate care in the care of her maternal grandmother. And if we look at accountability and the pillars of justice, in terms of the National Strategic Plan, this murderer, this perpetrator received 2 life sentences. So I think just to say that there is hope, and that if opportunities are provided, people's wounds, whilst they may not disappear, they can learn to cope and deal and manage their lives moving forward positively. In concluding, I would like to ask one question. Is it my responsibility to protect victims of violence, women and children? Is it your responsibility, or is it our responsibility? I think what has been stated previously, and I confirm and support and endorse that it is a multi-sectoral, coordinated response, or multi-response, a multi-sectoral, coordinated, evidence-based response. So it becomes our responsibility, and that is what I want to end with, that we need to hear our victims to stop their fear. And at the end of the day, if we reach out to those victims of violence, women and children, we never stand as tall as when we reach out to help them. Thank you. Kia liboha, siyabonga.
Thank you. Thank you so much. You touched on one thing, the trauma that results from these actions. There's so much trauma on the children, families, everyone.
With your colleague, what's his name?
I know, can you believe it? Such a long time, 18 years. Hello? Yep, hi, I can hear you. Thank you so much. Okay, thank you.